What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another highly combustible reaction. We're going to be jumping into the next one on our Sabaton journey. This is going to be the history. And then there'll be a timestamp in there, which I'll include below. For those of you that don't want to see the history, but we had a lot of people say that they enjoyed seeing the history first. So we're going to jump into the Battle of Thermopyle right before we do Sparta. So let's jump in and see what the history, the backstory, everything behind the song is. Join me. If not, click that little timestamp and it'll take you right to the song, right to the video portion of the song.
Sparta.
Song portion of the video.
Oh, what can I say? Hardcore.
Yeah, hardcore. Fucking really hardcore.
The great king of Persia had called, and his empire had answered. In the year 480 BC, an endless stream of marching feet made its way from Asia Minor westward. Not just Persians, but Bactrians and Medes, men from the Caucasus and Arabia, men on horseback, camels, chariots, men from the mountains and the steppe, men from the ancient cities and the sea, Babylonians, Phoenicians, Assyrians, contingents from places as far away as India, Ethiopia, and Egypt. All were called to war by Xerxes, king of kings, the son of Darius the Great, their God-appointed ruler and king of the world. And he called them to war against the people of Hellas. The Hellenic people, I'll call them Greeks for simplicity, had been offered an ultimatum by Darius: bend the knee and offer the king of kings what is rightfully his earth and his water. Many had done so, but others, most importantly the two mightiest city-states, Athens and Sparta, had refused. Sparta had even thrown the Persian envoys into a well to get their water and their earth from down there. This had provoked the Persians to war, as you may imagine. So begins the story told by the father of historians, Herodotus, a story that would be told for over 2,000 years. The Greeks had won the first round against King Darius at the Battle of Marathon, but Xerxes was determined to even the score. He would not bother to send more envoys, he would send his armies instead. Sitting on a throne made of white marble, Xerxes watched his host move to the Hellespont, where a mighty bridge supported by ships would bring them to Hellas. At the head of the army marched his guard, the Immortals, with wreaths of victory on their heads. To bless
Nobody's immortal. You may think that they are, but everybody can fall.
Guard, the Immortals, with wreaths of victory on their heads. To bless this day, he threw a goblet into the sea, alongside a golden bowl and a Persian sword. The gods will be watching Xerxes' great victory, for bridging the Asiatic and European worlds. An army of 3 million men was on the march, at least according to Herodotus. Modern historians narrow that force down to a maximum of 250,000 men.
That's still a lot of
still really massive for the time.
Huge.
And it was an enormous feat of logistics to keep them supplied.
Yeah.
Well, many northern Greek cities cooperated with the Persians for fear of being destroyed. Athens and Sparta had made a pact with each other. The powerful triremes of Athens would challenge the Persian fleet, while Sparta would march out to meet the Persians in the field. The Greeks wanted freedom, so they said. Yeah, but the Spartans were not truly free men, but bound to the law of their state. Only a small fraction of Sparta could call themselves Spartiates. Those were the citizens of Sparta, the ones allowed to vote, who reigned over the Periokos, the free neighbors, and the Helots, the servant class. Spartiates were the warrior class, disciplined by a system of rules that set them apart from other men. They were not permitted to own silver or gold, were not allowed to trade or take a profession.
Wow.
Instead, they trained their whole lives to serve the state, a training which only the strong, the cunning, and the tough would survive. Their bodies and minds were toughened by a lifetime of military drills and athletics. By the time of Xerxes' invasion,
that's who I want on my
team. There were only around 8,000 adult male Spartiates. They were few, but they were professionals. They wore their hair long and a proud scarlet coat, and were capable of carrying out the most complex of military maneuvers with ease. It was already late July, and autumn was not too far off with the strong storms of the Mediterranean. Xerxes had to move if he wanted to keep up with his supply fleet. The Spartans went north to meet the Persians, but could only bring a portion of their forces, since the holy festival of Carnea was around the corner, which forbade the Spartan host to go to war. Only 300 Spartiates, led by their king Leonidas, were sent northwards.
Oh,
Each Spartiate
like
was
that in the
personally
background.
chosen by the king and had to have a living heir, since there was a good chance he was not coming back. Now, they were accompanied by around 1,000 Perioikoi and Helots, and were soon joined by other allied contingents, mostly Thebans and Thespians. So, around 3,000 men assembled at Thermopyle, the Hot Gates.
So that movie, they left off a zero, because which everybody knew. Come on, there's no way that 300 individuals went out there and did that. But 3,000, because you gotta understand that it wasn't just as they marched along. There were other people that didn't want what was taking place to take place, that would have joined in the, like, you know, oh yeah, all right, if you guys are going, I guess we'll come with you. We're gonna be bound to a life of slavery after this anyway. So like, this just goes to show you exactly how the movies like to exaggerate things.
So, around 3,000 men assembled at Thermopyle, the Hot Gates. Thermopylae got its name from being near sulfuric hot springs. In terms of technical warfare, the Spartans did not fight much differently than their fellow Greeks, but much differently than the Persians. The Greeks favored the shield wall of tightly packed, heavily armored warriors who were to stand as a single block, relying on weight and solidity of their formation. The armor was extremely heavy, especially compared to the Persians. Corinthian bronze helmets covered their head fully, but for the characteristic T. Their composite leather breastplates and shoulder corselets were reinforced by metal scales and sheets. The large shield was covered with bronze and known as the hoplon, making the warrior a hoplite. On it, the Spartans bore the lambda symbol for Lacedaemon, the Greek name for Sparta. Armed with a 6-foot spear and with a sword for close-quarter combat, they were the most formidable of opponents.
Well, come on, like, legitimately, dudes spent their entire lives being broken and beaten and rebuilt up and hardened and toughened just for this moment. Like, for something like this to go down. So, of course, they're going to be the hardest damn ones on the battlefield. Because the harder you train, hey, the better you are. Simple as that. These other guys could have been the people that are joining them on these contingents and shit could have been farmers. They could have been any kind of thing. They weren't in that society where they've been training since they may have had a little bit of training, but not a lifetime of training like these like the actual Spartans did, I guess, whatever you want to call them. I don't even know how the hell he said it.
The most formidable of opponents.
That's hard as shit. When you train your whole life to do something.
While the Spartan right flank was guarded by the sea, the left was blocked by the steep slopes of Mount Kallidromos. There was even an ancient wall guarding the pass. It was the perfect place for hoplite warfare. Coming south from Macedonia, the first Persian scout who approached the Hot Gates told Xerxes of a group of half-naked men readying themselves for battle and seemingly unbothered by the large host assembling in front of them. Xerxes wanted them swept aside and ordered a frontal attack because of a lack of tactical choices and, well, a lack of patience, okay? On the 18th of August, 480 BC, the battle began. The Persian host, though, they were used to battles in vast open areas or in mountains where speed and agility brought the advantage.
Totally
Much of the Persian force
quarters.
was only lightly armed with short spears, daggers, they had wicker shields. Their main weapon was the bow, not the sword.
A wicker shield? Hello, have you ever seen a wicker chair? What the hell is a wicker shield gonna do for you? Besides catch an arrow, maybe.
They had wicker shields. Their main weapon was the bow, not the sword. Some elite units wore leather armor or reinforced jerkins, but most wore no armor at all. At first, the Medes attacked and promptly ran into a wall of gleaming bronze. It was a terrible slaughter, as their weapons could not penetrate the shield wall. The Medes withdrew without making much of a dent in the Greek formation. Next were the men of Susa, proud warriors who fired a hail of arrows into the hoplites before they charged over the dead bodies of the Medes. The men of Susa fared no better and broke like a wave against a rock. By the afternoon, there was a second wall. This time it was made out of corpses. Xerxes was losing what little patience he had in the first place, but clearly this was no ordinary force he faced. He ordered the immortals forward. The Spartans performed a feigned retreat, stopping and bracing only at the last moment when the enemy charged them. Then, after the slaughter, they again pushed and advanced a short pace to tear into the enemy. Spartans were made for this kind of battle. Xerxes, watching from his throne, is said to have sprung 3 times into the air out of rage that even his beloved immortals could not break the Greek lines. With heavy losses, the attacks were called off for the night. By now, the Greek defense and defiance had caused a traffic jam. The whole host was halted by a few thousand men in the narrow pass. The Spartans and their allies tended their wounds. They too had casualties, but not much compared with the mass of corpses in front of them. The next morning, Xerxes put more troops into the pass, promising rich rewards for success. It was another day of hard fighting, and the Greek line held fast. No hail of arrows, no frontal assault could break the defiant defenders. It was close to nightfall that the Persians learned of the secret pass over Mount Kalidromos that would lead to the Spartan rear. Now, this was, of course, not a secret pass at all. It was just a secret to the Persians, who, like all invading forces throughout all of history, did not have local knowledge. In Herodotus' history, this betrayal would be attributed to a certain Ephialtes, probably a local who simply told them about it for money. Leonidas had positioned a small defense on the pass with men from Lamia. He certainly would have preferred to have his trusted Spartans in that position, but he could not afford to remove any of them from the main battle. And though the men of Lamia had just one job, to keep an eye out and warn the Spartan king in time if the Persians were coming, they messed it up. They got totally surprised during the night. News that the immortals were upon them reached Leonidas too late. Their rear was in danger, and even if they fled, the Persian horsemen would pursue them. But since the word flight did not exist in the Spartan lexicon anyways, Leonidas offered his allies a withdrawal option, while his Spartans would hold the Persians off as long as possible. Send a message to Sparta to tell them how they died. Still, many men chose to stay with the Spartan king, so their numbers were still around 1,200 men strong. Leonidas told the remaining men to have a good breakfast, because tonight they would dine in Hades. With their lives now forfeit, they would go out to inflict as many casualties upon the enemy as possible.
Because that's what you
As
do.
the immortals appeared behind them, Leonidas' force formed a hedgehog of spears, and the Persians had to be whipped into battle out of fear of the Spartans. The final hours of the Spartans and their allies were hours of relentless battle. They killed and killed, driving the enemy against the mountain walls and down into the sea. They fought until their spears broke, their shields and their helmets were dented, and their swords went blunt. At one point, Leonidas was killed, and a savage battle over his body ensued. The Persians trying to claim his body as a trophy, and the Spartans desperately fighting for the honor of their king. It is said that 2 of Xerxes' brothers died in the attempt before the Persians retrieved the body. The Spartans defended themselves to the last, until overwhelmed by spears and arrows. They died to a man. There were no Spartan prisoners. By midday of the 3rd day, it was all over. Xerxes himself went down to inspect the battlefield. He cut off the head of Leonidas and impaled it on a spear for his army to see. The Spartans were mortal. The Spartans could be killed. But their last stand had given the Persians a taste of what was to come. Greece was not a pushover. The war was far from over and would eventually be decided at sea and on the battlefield of Plataea in Greek favor. But the last stand at Thermopyle, at the Hot Gates, was a symbol to the rest of Hellas, a rallying call, and a legend to stand through the centuries. As for the Spartans and their bravery and their might, after the war, there would be a plaque at Thermopyle bearing the words, "Tell them in Lacedaemon, passerby, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie."
A traitor's stand, secret passage to
Okay, so all joking aside, Sparta, I mean, it's a popular topic.
It's a popular topic because of the movie 300 and things like that. But to me, honestly, the actual history behind it is way more impressive than the things that happen in the movie. Because you're talking about like real life individuals who knew they were going to die and who stayed there and were just like hard as steel to the very end. Like super, super dope. I love this story. I always have, like, ever since, even before the movie came out, when we were reading about it back in school, like, this was one of the things that caught my attention. Like, Sparta is, they were kind of hard, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't train like that
Okay, so all
nowadays.
joking aside, Sparta, I mean, it's a popular topic. Why, how did this develop?
Okay, so it's actually Joachim sitting in our studio and working, and I'm sitting in my office working in the same building. And he's working on a new song together with the guy Ken, who has been helping us out with writing a couple of songs over the years. They have some little idea. They ask me for my input, and I come over and I'm like, guys, I'm not hearing a metal song. I'm hearing the soundtrack to the movie 300. I hear the ooh, ah. In the song, I hear this, and I see it in front of me. And they were like, you're right. The song became very popular.
Right.
And it's a song I really love to perform live. And when we were performing it on the tour, we, of course, needed to bring a little bit of theater to the stage. So we brought Spartans, and we put Joachim in a helmet.
Like that?
Similar to this.
Wow,
That
yeah.
he was wearing it, and he was wearing the costume, maybe not the only the...
Oh, well, you know.
But he was wearing the helmet, and he was trying to sing the song. And he was always complaining because inside of this one, you will hear very, very strange noises, and it will distort your voice, and you can't really take the tones perfect or
So
hit
it
the
did,
notes.
I can
it did
totally see
semi
that
mess
throwing
up
you
the
off,
actual,
too.
you know?
Yeah, so Joachim was not really happy about singing inside of a helmet, and since then, we have not sing from a helmet.
But what about the actors playing Spartans and stuff?
They
That
were
must have been interesting.
Yeah, we had a couple of our crew members who really enjoyed it.
Yeah?
And obviously they needed because they barely wear any clothes under that.
Oh, yeah, of
So
course.
they needed to be a little bit fit. So we needed to carefully select the toughest crew members who could wear the spears and the shields.
Look at that. Oh, look at those bodies, huh?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Brutal guys.
No, I wouldn't
what
have
do you
been
want?
picked. I mean, I look good, but
Wanna
you know,
watch?
I think I'm older than any of the Spartans lived to be. Yeah, I'm 52 now. Those guys were long dead.
Yeah, they
Oh,
were
yeah.
all long dead.
Well, it was a tougher life back then. It was a brutal life. So how should we end? Should we say it?
We can do it.
Okay.
This is Sparta!
Cool ass history. Cool ass way to learn history. I'm gonna pause it right there because we don't want to get too much of a preview of the song since we're getting into that next. Obviously, my cat wanted to come and get some Sabaton too, some history lessons. You're gonna get put back down, okay? You can't stay here through the whole next song. We will be right back in just a second. Let me get that next video set up, and we'll be right back. And we're back. We got the video loaded up. We did not get rid of the cat because she's just being loud when I get rid of her. She wants to stay here with Dad, so she's just gonna watch it with us. Let's jump right into the musical portion of Sabaton Sparta now. I can totally see him listening to this and being like, guys, I don't hear a metal song at all. 100%. You don't hear metal when you hear this. You hear like a movie. Definitely like this would be 300 all. A long time.
Came ashore. Heeding Leonidas' call, the Spartans went to war. Joined by the brothers of you against the fateful horde, Hellenic hearts are set aflame. The hot gate calls their name. The final stand. Stop the Persians still in hand. Form a war, live to fall, and live forever. Sparta!
This is kind of a savage song to be having a cat in my lap. You get down. Woo. May end up hurting the cat. This is one of those damn warrior songs. You ready to go to war after you hear this. Let's jump back in. It is 100% too bad that this did not come out. Oh, it might have. No, that it didn't come out prior to the Sparta movie. Because prior to 300, because they could have been the soundtrack.
Morning has broken. Today they're fighting in the shade. When arrows blocked the sun they fell. Tonight they dine in hell. A traitor's hand, secret passage to the land. Know his name, know his shame. We're lost forever. Sparta, Hellas. Then and again, see 300 men. Slaughter, Persians, glory and death. Spartans will never surrender.
Yo, is anybody out there actually like a teacher and using this in their classes? Because if not, like, come on, history teachers, what you waiting for? This is the cool. Even if you did it like once a week, this is the coolest way to teach history. You'd be instantly go to being the coolest history teacher in the world.
Spartans will never surrender.
I really want to hear this live next. I'm gonna go watch it after this. Fucking fantastic. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant band. Ooh. We don't want any spoilers. Let me go down here and make sure that we're not missing anything interesting, anything important. Looks like a bunch of spoilers. So, that was Sabaton Sparta. I forgot to do the shout out at the beginning, but huge shout out to James for this one. This was by donation. He asked for both versions. A lot of people seem to like both versions where we watched the history and the video. Some people didn't. Like I said, there will be one of those little timestamps down there for you to go ahead and click over and just check out the music portion of the video. I will be going back and taking a look at this live after, but this was the requested video. We always take care of our donos around here. If you guys enjoy Sabaton and this content, me doing these reviews or these reactions as much as I do, hit the like button. Let me know. If you dislike them, hit the dislike button. Let me know. I have cat hair everywhere now. Subscribe if you want to see more content, possibly your content. And until next time, it's highly combustible. It's been a pleasure. We are out of here.